Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. We have NFA live yet again every Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern. We have Rob from DigitalAsset.News,
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me back.
and we have Aaron from Coin Bureau Trading. How's it going, Aaron?
It's good. It's good. How are you? I mean, the market's really popping right now, so things are really exciting.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about for sure. Guys, if you're not subscribed to their channels, make sure you subscribe. I imagine at this point most of you guys are subscribed to Rob, but his link is in the description below. And we also have the link to the Coin Bureau Trading channel in the description below as well. So let's go ahead and jump in here. We're going to start off just talking about Bitcoin. So I was looking, Bitcoin rallied from essentially like 74K, basically near the 2024 high, all the way back up. And now it's actually pushing 96K. Or actually, it's already hit 96K. It's at 96.4, 96.5. So it's basically rallied back up to where it initially broke down in late February. So I do want to talk about that. So Aaron, why don't we start with you? I'm curious about this rally. And basically, I think what a lot of people are interested in kind of getting your opinion on is, you know, what are we looking for to confirm if this is going to take us to a new all-time high versus a lower high? And like, what would you be looking for either of those two scenarios?
Up until this point, I mean, I've been walking on eggshells just because my must make or break price was closing above 95K, which seems extremely likely given the fact that we're up 96,300 right now. The main things I've been watching are price action struggling at 95K, daily RSI looking really weak, just putting in lower highs, just falling below 70. But now it's actually popped right back above, and volume. The only thing that I'm looking at is it okay if I share my screen? I know we just started. It feels like we have to have a couple drinks first to really get comfortable sharing screens, but is that cool?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. Okay. Let me know if it's too small. I can zoom it in.
I think we can see it.
I got it. That's good.
For me, the big thing I was watching was just confluence of Fibonacci levels at the 1.618 from 2024, and then this recent area. So the fact that Bitcoin was just struggling for 8 days in a row right here was like, oh man, like not nail biting, but I was preparing for a pullback, to be honest. But now this is happening. I'm totally happy with this outcome, completely happy. As far as like longevity and like how long can this really go, the main things I'm watching right now are daily RSI and volume. The main thing I'm unimpressed about this rally right now, or unimpressed with this rally, is the fact that Bitcoin is now at 96,408, 415. It keeps climbing, but where's the daily volume? I mean, I know that Binance BTC USDT is not to most people like the pinnacle market, but it does have the most market volume according to like CoinGecko and other resources. So if the biggest exchange with the most trading volume for Bitcoin is still like really weak, like I know we still have like 12 hours left on the day, 10 hours left. I just don't know if this is going to be sustainable. Maybe we're just seeing a lot of short sellers getting liquidated right now. We're just getting popped up higher, but I mean, I'm going to take it. It's happening. I'm happy with this, but as far as like sustainability, the main thing I'm looking for is volume to exceed at least the last 2 days volume. I want to see RSI shoot way above this high that we have here around like 83, 84 to show that there's strength to continue to move up higher. Because if we top out right around here, it's not going to be a really strong push, in my opinion. And I mean, it's great. I'm happy with this price. I'm happy with the move. But of course, there's that looming like idea of like, okay, how is 100K going to be treated again? Because Bitcoin really struggled every single time it came up to $100,000, even just like inching above to like 101 back over here in January. I know we had lots of time. It felt like a lot of time above $100,000, but really it was short-lived compared to all of the time we spent below this level. So I'm happy with price action. It really depends on today's close. One other possibility for all of you that are chartists out there that I talked about, and I'm actually possibly seeing happen, which is amazing, is basically like a bull flag. So bull flags, the ones I like to see are the ones that are basically a descending channel where we make a lower high and a lower low like this till it compresses and then bounces up. But there are textbook bull flags that are basically going sideways like this, which this appears to be. So I'm happy with the outcome. It's just I don't know how sustainable the move is going to be once we get up to $100,000, just because it's so many zeros. It's such a huge psychological level of resistance, and there's no evidence of people wanting to buy Bitcoin up here. So this to me is probably fueled by leveraged shorts getting squeezed right now. That's the best thing I can say from what I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, thanks for the outlook on Bitcoin. I know it is kind of an interesting level right here, just south of 100K. So we'll see if we can get that daily close above 95K today and see what that can bring. I saw Rob. I know we talk about initial claims a lot. I know I wasn't going to talk about it today, but that actually popped up a little bit today. But it also popped up in May and June of last year as well. So it might just be the same thing, might not. But I really want to talk about Rob here, because the thing that Rob talks about all the time is Bitcoin dominance.
his Bitcoin dominance. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And Bitcoin dominance just keeps on going up. And I mean, it's actually been almost up only this entire year, right? If you go look at the chart, Bitcoin dominance has almost just been going straight up since December 3rd. It hasn't really pulled back. It went from about 54%. Now it's up to about 64%. And it's done so in a relatively short time. So I guess the question is, what are your thoughts on it? How long is this trend going to go on for? And I guess that the other thing to think about is, think about how many maxis have been created over the last 3.5 years. Like if you just thought about how many altcoins have essentially gone asymptotically to zero against Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin dominance just takes more and more market share. And it's hard to ever believe that altcoins will do well against Bitcoin when you're in trends like this for so long. We've seen it happen before, so we'll probably see it happen again. What are your thoughts, Rob, about Bitcoin dominance?
Well, first of all, Aaron's answer about the volume, it's something that I don't usually take a look at, but it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? If we just have that low volume and there's people getting short squeezed out there, then of course they're going to have to run things up. So I would say like what Aaron was talking about as far as like, I think we're just going to chop sideways for a bit as far as that goes. I can see it now because of that one. So it was a good one, Aaron. But as far as like Bitcoin dominance, I mean, we can take a look at this website that I'm always stealing information from. And we can take a look at this dominance level as it just keeps going up. Now, I remember not too long ago, I want to say 3-4 months ago, when we were doing one of these NFA live shows, we were talking about Bitcoin dominance. And actually, I think it was over a year ago when Ben was talking about, for some reason, Ben was talking about this 60% Bitcoin dominance, how it could hit there. And it actually hit that. And then the question was, well, how high could it go? And I threw out a number like, 66%. And then it was just a random guesstimate. But here we are. And if we take a look, yeah, and just here we are. And if we take a look at it, I mean, it's just been going, I mean, dominance. 60, is this right? 63.57%.
The reason it's a little different than TradingView, because we use a lot more cryptocurrencies in calculating dominance, whereas I think TradingView only uses 125. So that's why it's lower on this website than TradingView. Yeah,
but it's still extremely high. But the question then is, why is it going up? What's happening? And of course, I think because of the narrative, and I get this a lot on my channel. My channel used to be a lot more altcoins, but now the sentiment has shifted a lot to, and I hear the same quote, which is, this run or this time frame made me a Bitcoin maxi. Mm-hmm. And I think people are starting to really turn the corner on that as to why it's so important. So, I mean, we've seen and we just talked about this yesterday. We talked about Howard Lutnick going on. I was the Bitcoin Magazine channel, and he talked about, he's like, look, we have not AI. He called it an investment advancement, where the U.S. government itself, just think about this. The United States government is going to fast track Bitcoin miners in the United States by giving them the prerequisites, the permits, essentially all the information that they possibly need to get land and to get utilities to start Bitcoin mining. And they said it's going to be a white glove service. So if you have over $1 billion to spend, it's going to be pretty good service. And over 10 billion, they're going to fast track everything for you. The United States government. So, I mean, we have that. We have Michael Saylor, I think, coming in today talking about they're going to use $10 billion to buy even more Bitcoin. And then, of course, everything else that's going on positive in the ecosystem that is Bitcoin. So when I take a look at like Bitcoin dominance, I think we went askew, especially with meme coins, as we got into that and people realized that, oh, this stuff really is trash. Like we've been talking about, 99% of this is junk. So when we put this information out and people are like, nah, it's good. Fartcoin's going to do pretty well, which it did actually. But most of these things don't do anything and they're worthless. And now people are starting to really understand that it's a good gamble, but I think that's why Bitcoin dominance goes up, because we actually see it being talked about. We see it actually as gold 2.0. Hedge against inflation. And as far as like a unit of exchange, I'm not so sure for that piece. But as far as like store of value, I can definitely see it. So Bitcoin dominance, I'll stick with my original prediction, 66%. Maybe it'll go up higher.
Well, I mean, okay, let me just butt in real quick. It's now at, I mean, on TradingView at 64%, on Into the Cryptoverse at 63%. So if you're thinking 66%, then that means we're pretty close to the top, a lot closer than we were a year ago, and then 2 years before that, right?
Yeah.
And looking back at 2021, when it had a massive rally up to, I think, 72 or 73%, when Bitcoin is going crazy, then there were topping signals. And then everyone that was a big Bitcoin maxi, all of a sudden they're seeing altcoins go up and they decide to dump their BTC for alts, like we were joking before. I mean, I saw someone post gold is, down, Bitcoin is up, but Farcoin's up 117% so far this month. Something stupid like that, where I hated seeing all of these investment analyses and all these Medium articles about the validity of Fartcoin. Where could Fartcoin be in 5 years? Like, it's not going to exist, guys. But like, there's the mania side of it, but there's also the reality that, I mean, I love saying this because I'm right below you, Ben, but eventually BTC.D is going to top out. And then there's going to be that shift. And I know that you're not against alts. And I agree with you. Actually, I learned a lot from you in understanding how the market moves. And I think a lot of people look at Bitcoin dominance going higher and higher, and they're probably looking at it like a meme coin chart. It's just never going to go down. Well, when it does, there's going to be a big shift. Now, I'm curious to hear your guys' opinion. Where do you think the chips are going to shift first? Where do you think the money's going to flow to first? Because this is my first rodeo. I've been in crypto since 2017, and I've seen lots of different cycles and narratives come and go. But if we're close to a top for Bitcoin dominance, I mean, what do you think is the next dominance piece of the pie to start expanding or start sucking out Bitcoin dominance from?
I mean, I think you have to remember too that even when Bitcoin dominance tops, that doesn't always mean it just immediately collapses, right?
Sure.
I think like last cycle it topped and it didn't really go anywhere for a year and a half. It sort of went down, but then it didn't really go down until a year and a half later.
Right.
I don't really. I mean, until ETH Bitcoin really starts going up, I think everything else is going to struggle. And when ETH Bitcoin starts going up, that's when Bitcoin dominance tops, more than likely. I don't think Bitcoin dominance is going to top until the Fed sufficiently changes monetary policy. Where is it going to go? My guess is it would go into, some of that would go into Ethereum. Some of it would go into some of the higher market cap altcoins. Maybe the ones that have been beaten down more. There's a lot of places it could go. I mean, we'll see. I mean, it also kind of depends on what are the sort of the leading narratives at the time that it does top. Because, had you asked that question 2 years ago in, say, 2023, a lot of people thought Bitcoin dominance was going to top back then. And, the answers probably would have been completely different than they would be today. Because a lot of those narratives sort of like played out. And a lot of those coins went up and they came back down. No one really cares about them anymore. So it might actually depend on when it happens. And when it happens probably depends on when the Fed into QT when they cut interest rates more. So that's what I would argue. By the way, which brings us to another question. Speaking of, things that affect Bitcoin dominance, what is the Fed going to do next week? I think they have a meeting. Yeah, I think it's next week from what I remember. So I'm curious what you guys think. Let's see, if we pull up the CME watch tool, CME group, it looks like there's about a 95% chance they're going to hold rates steady. So what are you guys thinking, for the Fed at the next meeting? Is Jerome Powell going to say, screw the degens, we're going to keep on keep interest rates high, and we're gonna keep QT where it is? Remember, they just slowed QT at the last meeting. I think they slowed it down to about 40 billion a month. So, Aaron, what are your thoughts? Like, what do you think the Fed's going to do next week based on what we've seen the markets do?
Man, I don't know. That's the easy answer. Can I say that? Is that okay on NFA?
Fine.
But the main things that I'm watching are like, so to me, like I try my best to pay attention to as many markets as I possibly can, but try not to look at too much. There are many charts that I don't understand, like bond market charts and stuff like that. But I have noticed, and I've been watching gold's rise. So to simplify things, when gold is rising and going parabolic, that's like a red flag. That's like the smoke alarm in your girlfriend's apartment, and you really just want to help her out while you're on the car or on the call with her, but she doesn't know it's going off, right? That's the smoke alarm just going beep, 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 beep. There's a lot of danger right now, but now that it's kind of topped out around $3,500, that to me is a sign that there's a little bit of, it's like a collective sigh of relief, I guess you could say. I think that's also why we're seeing Bitcoin going up. It's actually weird that gold's going down, but Bitcoin is going up. So I'm saying that in terms of the meeting next week, because I'm thinking about the speculative market and how the market's reacting to this upcoming important news event. And it's it's the biggest one yet, right? It's always the biggest one. I think that the market is ready to go back to risk on, given the fact that gold's having a pullback. I don't know if he's going to change rates. I don't know if he's going to drop rates or keep them. But looking at how the market is interpreting what's happening right now and gold is topping out, to me, that seems like a sign of relief for markets. So, I mean, we're also seeing the S&P slowly recover. The Nikkei has recovered a lot from dropping. Hang Seng and the Shanghai index are doing so-so, a lot better compared to like 2 weeks ago. So I don't think he's going to switch to QE like immediately. And I really don't think that Donald Trump was really playing 4D chess all along either. Now, looking back at it, like there was all this chatter about, oh yeah, he's trying to force the Fed's hand. Even I was kind of buying into the narrative, but no. I think it's going to take way more to force Jerome Powell to make a decision to switch to quantitative easing. And now that the market snapped back so fast, he'll probably keep rates where they are, maybe. I don't know. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, like you take a look at the PC, it's pretty much the same thing. And then, we know that this meeting is a wash. Nothing's going to come out of it. And that's pretty much how it is. But if you take a look at what he's looking at, Jerome's looking at the same thing we're all looking at. Is inflation going down or is it going up? And it's been, moving sideways. And, so far we're at, 2.4, 2.6% year over year. And that's a good thing. But the question is like, the data points that Jerome looks at and the Fed looks at are a little bit different than say like, and we've talked about this before, Trueflation looks at. And people would say, I don't care what Trueflation says because that's not what Jerome looks at. But if we take a look at inflation, these 120 different API integration data points, we can see that actually inflation is going down a little bit. And they say it's at 1.35. Jerome and his data points, which are a little bit of a laggards, are 2.4. So what is he going to do? He's like, well, look, inflation's still up there. It's not at 2%. Why would we cut? It makes no sense because when we do cuts, it's inflationary. So there's that. And then there's also some kind of mixed signals. And this is from Market Watch. We take a look at, this was just out yesterday, ADP employment. It was it was 147,000. It was cut in half. So if we're looking at employment levels, that's not as many different job creation as we'd want to see. However, and of course, there's other things that we can take a look at. Consumer spendings is up a little bit. Personal income, I know some people will say, that's not my income. I got you. Everybody's different. But it's up a little bit. And then pending home sales, which we're getting later, is actually sky high. That's not good for that many homes to be on the market. But as far as like employment goes, ADP employment, which is pretty much 1 in 6 United States citizens are what they're talking about here. We take a look at non-farm roll payment. I mean, it was huge. In March, they had 228,000. That's being the forecast of 135,000. And then if we take a look at the unemployment level, it's been pretty much flat, right? 4.2, 4.14. So it hasn't gone up significantly to where Jerome would say, okay, we got to stimulate this. So he's probably not going to cut. And then, of course, if we take a look at what Ben was talking about, quantitative tightening, he's right. I mean, they have been offloading, and they've, just like you said, the last meeting in April, they said, look, we're going to stop, or we're going to decrease the offloading 25 billion to 5 billion. So we're going to keep going down, and they're going, but as far as like stopping the tightening, they're not going to do that anytime soon. So yeah, you look at the data, I just don't see. I know people want a rate cut. I just don't think it's going to happen this time.
Yeah, you're probably right. We'll see. We'll see if they throw us a curveball. But so far, it seems like the markets are pretty much expecting no rate cuts, and we'll see about QT. I think their FOMC minutes from February, so they're looking at maybe getting rid of runoff by like mid 2025, but that probably wouldn't mean May. But we'll see. Let's continue on, guys. By the way, if you have any questions for Aaron or Rob, make sure you leave them in the comments, and we'll get to those at the end. The next question I have is basically for Rob, unless Aaron also has experience in the real estate market. I'm really curious, Rob, what's going on in the real estate market these days? I look around and I don't really see a lot of transactions going on. And in some areas prices are coming down. They're not really coming down that fast, but there's some dropping and slow drop for some of them. And what are your thoughts for the real estate market, as an investor, or as just as a potential first-time home buyer that wants to buy a house? I think a lot of people, probably a lot of viewers, are hopeful that the prices of houses will come down, not so that they can be an investor and be a landlord, but just so they can buy their first house. So yeah, what's your thought process here on the real estate?
Well, I'll give you the advice I gave a friend of mine who is unfortunately going through a divorce. That's a bad way to start, but it is what it is. He said, I go, look, man, this is a pretty bad time to buy a house. If you're looking for it, the prices are overdone. They're building more if you want to move farther out. But if it was me right now and I had to get a house, I wouldn't be buying, I'd be renting for sure. And he's like, are you sure? I was like, look, you have to deal with taxes anyhow. And where he's at, it's one of the highest in the country. You have to deal with upkeep if you buy it. You have to deal with a 20% down payment, unless you're a first-time home buyer, which friends of mine are not. And then you have to essentially do everything and furnish it. I go, why would you do that? Just rent a house, go in there and not have to deal with all the hassles. And so that's on that side for homes and real estate. But for me, there's other like opportunities out there, right? If you can find like dilapidated, rundown houses, like in Puerto Rico, for example, we've got 250,000 houses out there that are just abandoned or just really downtrodden. You take that, a 60% valuation that is down, you're able to actually fix it up with good people. You can actually have, do a pretty good thing if you're going to totally flip it, or if you're going to do short-term, long-term rentals. So for that, there's that piece of it. But as far as like the American dream of having the house and everything, everybody wants that. It feels good to own your own stuff. But do you ever own anything? You never own your house here in America. I don't know what it's like everywhere else, but you're always going to have to pay taxes, and it's always going to go up every year. You're always going to have to deal with upkeep. So what do you really own? And think about your car too. Do you really own your car? I mean, you do, but then if you want to use it, you got to have insurance and you got to pay for the state. There's one thing that you always will own and have total ownership, and that's why we're all into Bitcoin. So to bring it back to Bitcoin, that's like the best asset you can possibly get right now.
Yeah, it's really interesting how real estate has not been that attractive, I think, for a lot of people for a long time. And I also, I mean, I've learned a lot about real estate too the last few years. But it just moves so slowly, like the real estate market. It moves so slowly because when it turns, it takes years to really turn the market. Aaron, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on the real estate market. Are you into real estate at all?
No, but I've been wanting to get a home or build a home. I actually live in Japan. I live in Tokyo, Western Tokyo.
Oh,
And one thing that's really weird here, and you mentioned in Puerto Rico having lots of like abandoned homes.
yeah.
Because I'm sure you guys have heard recently that just the population in Japan is dwindling. So that means that there are 2 people dying for every 1 person born, something like that. It's not that great. So one of the interesting side effects of that, though, are akiya, which is essentially empty home. So there are tons of abandoned homes in Japan where if I didn't want to live in Tokyo and I want to live somewhere like way out in the middle of a rice paddy, there's just a home waiting to be purchased and I can go and actually get it for free.
No kidding.
It's wild. I mean, you have to live. There are a couple things you have to do. You have to live here. But even so, like you'll go on like Instagram or TikTok and you see entrepreneurs going over to like these super like these abandoned homes in areas and just buying them for like 50,000 US, 70,000 US. But it's Japan, kind of a long commute. So you have to be a little bit flexible. You have to go through so much paperwork. But if you're like a permanent resident like I am, it's an interesting possibility. But like you said, taxes, there's still taxes here. There's permits. There's all the hoops to jump through. There's paying it down. There's all that stuff. So it's like, even the idea of owning a home is like, there's so many headaches where it's so much easier to rent, especially in a crowded city like Tokyo. So
that's pretty good. Hey, real quick before we go on, because I'm always interested to see like the sentiment. This is why I'm always harping on Guy about the sentiment in Europe, the sentiment in Dubai. What's the sentiment over there in Japan as far as like crypto and digital assets? Because in some places we look at digital assets like altcoins, like just all scams. And Bitcoin's okay. Some places, everything's a scam. Like in Japan, how does that look like? Because I would assume they're more like technological, forward thinking. Maybe not. See, this is why I asked the question, because I don't know.
It's okay. It's cool, man. I mean, there's 2 sides of every coin, right? A lot of people look at Japan as like, wow, you guys have robot cafes. It's true. It's weird. I would never go. I still haven't gone. But a lot of paperwork is done by hand in Japan. You have a physical seal, like a stamp that you have to sign up for yourself. You can't sign things. It's actually a seal. They have fax machines. They deliver things by hand. Like it's insane. So going over to cryptocurrency, initially it's like this subculture, but it actually started to get a bad rap in, I think, 2018. So they actually had to change the name of it to have a better interpretation, because the original name of it, Kasotsuka, had this really negative connotation for like money laundering.
Yeah.
So they changed it to Ango Tsuka. So Ango is more like cryptography. So it's like a cryptographic asset, right? So Japan is all about the outward appearance. And you want to present a really positive outward appearance, even if you don't feel it, even if you don't mean it, right? It's like high school, but forever. So everyone here really cares about the outward appearance. So money, status, cars, fashion, things like that are really, really big. And people live in closets and they don't have a closet for their clothes. I'm not kidding. It's insane. So in regards to crypto, there aren't that many people that I know that are super into crypto. I did meet Miss Bitcoin. She's awesome. My Chun. But she's since moved to like Sweden, but she's like an anomaly. And once Bitcoin started to take off, then it started to get popular. When I was looking for a house, I mentioned to my realtor that I trade crypto. She's like, I use or I guess you guys call it in America Rakuten. Is that what it is?
Yeah, Rakuten.
Okay, Rakuten. So I use this to like save up points whenever I buy food, and I can choose to save in Bitcoin. It's like, wait, you can? Really? It's like there are some parts of it where it's like, whoa, this is really cool and forward thinking, but I don't think they really see it as the escape hatch like the West sees, specifically Bitcoin. And there are other like weird meme coins over here too. It's like Mocha coin or something like that, but there's some weird like Doge-ish coin over here as well. Like there are lots of weird subculture coins in Japan, but I think it's more of it's still new and it's still seen as being like a little bit risky, a little bit bad, I guess you could say, culturally.
Yeah.
So not that many people are into it, but the people that are, like, that's Japan. Once I decide what my hobby is, I've decided it for life. So if you're going to do Bitcoin, you're only doing Bitcoin for the rest of your life. That is it.
Hey,
Die hard.
yeah, perfect. Just real quick, last question. So I always ask this: banks, have any banks that you know of shut you down or people you know down for trading crypto? Because in Puerto Rico, it happened to me.
No, it hasn't happened to me. The only problem I have being a foreigner, being an expat, is that they don't really like dealing with foreigners because I don't speak Japanese natively. I don't read every single thing. So trying to get a bank account, a proper one for my business, that was a little bit tricky. And then when they found out, oh, I'm also into crypto, they were like, yeah. But eventually I found a good, like a lower level bank, not like one of the bigger ones. But at the same time, like, what is this? Like SoftBank and all those other big companies are joining together for that 21 group or something like that. But SoftBank is huge. Like, they're Japan based. It's a Japanese company. So I know, and there's also MetaPlanet as well. So it's weird. Like, there's this double standard, I guess you could say. But yeah, it's tricky.
Awesome. Not surprising. Interesting about MetaPlanet. Thank you. All right. Those are all my questions, Ben. Sorry.
All right. No, that's good. Last question before we get to audience questions. So if you guys have a question in the audience for either Rob or Aaron, go ahead and post that in the comments. Last question. So we saw real GDP came in negative for Q1, at least sort of the first, release of it. Obviously, it could get revised later. A lot of people talk about what happened in 2022, 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP, but one of those quarters later on got revised to be positive, in fact. So even that, like, it's like, even when the data comes in, you still think like it could get revised, like, years later. So it makes you question, like, how much weight to even put on any of that stuff when like 6 months from now, it could be completely different. But I'm curious, like, do you think it's a fluke? Is it mostly just related to tariffs? And if we get on the other side of tariffs, or if the markets kind of have accepted the tariffs and are still okay, or can we move on? But I'm curious, basically, is it a fluke? Is it just kind of a one-time thing, and then we're back to normal by Q2, Q3? Or is something more worrisome going on under the hood? Rob, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah. Well, there's always something to worry about, right? The wall of worry, as you're always talking about.
Climbing the wall of worry, right?
Exactly. So, like, if we take a look at it, I mean, just regular GDP, I mean, it's still going up. This is regular GDP, but we're looking at real GDP, which of course counts for inflation. So, I mean, over time, you can see that, yes, it was a negative print, and that's not great. Now, if we take a look, if we expand out, right, take a look over 5 years or 10 years, we had some pretty bad ones, but of course, this was during this thing, the coronavirus. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was a big thing. Anyhow, so we're at negative 0.3%. But remember, like, after our Q1, 2, 3, 4, 2021, we had a monster bull run. Remember that year? It was great. Everybody's making money. Well, after that, they had a negative 1. Uh-oh. Is that me? Oh, yeah. Had a negative 1 for GDP, and now we're at negative 0.3. So what the heck happened? It comes down to 3 things: trade deficit, government spending, consumer spending, really. So if we take a look at the trade imbalance right now, we take a look over the last year, we had a negative couple of quarters. And if we just zoom out real quick, what the hell happened? Well, it's because with tariff, like we talked about, all these companies did a smart thing. They're like, look, I don't want to pay for that much, especially for the tariffs that are coming in. Let me import as much as I possibly can and get these things into here, and then just go from there. And because of that, we have pretty much of a trade imbalance, because we're not big exporters of things. That's what China's for. So we have that issue. We also have, of course, DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, and they've reduced the amount of government spending. Whether you agree with that or disagree with that, there's a big problem with America, which is we like to tax our citizens, we like to inflate the dollar, and we like to use those and put those into the government and then spend like crazy. because that's what we're good at. Two things. We're good at that, and we're good at diabetes. Besides those two things, not so much. So we have that issue. And then we also have personal consumption expenditures. And this is the great thing about data. That's why I like Ben's website, and I'm stealing from it constantly. For the personal consumption expenditures month over month, we just keep going up. People keep spending. But if you take the look at this is just no rate of change. Month over month, we're actually increased. But if you look at quarter over quarter, we've had a decline. And I think that's what some of the economists are looking at, going, look, quarter over quarter, we've had a decline of people actually spending things. But if you just take a look at year over year, it's pretty much flat. So from there, there are things on the horizon. If tariffs don't get some type of resolution, like Aaron was saying, maybe there wasn't a 4D chess, maybe it was tic-tac-toe, or maybe just the execution wasn't perfect, we're going to have problems moving forward. And it sums up like this. There was this from Apollo Global Management. And they kind of laid it out what their worst case scenario. After that, the tariffs get announced on April 2nd, early to mid-May, container ships to U.S. ports come to a stop. Mid to late May, trucking demand comes to a halt, leading to empty shelves. I'm waiting for that. Late May to early June, layoffs in trucking and retail industries, and then recession in summer 2025. Does that mean it absolutely could happen? It's just a possibility. And it really comes down to you who are watching this video. How do you deal with this? Do you deal with this going, this is worse, I'm going to lose everything? Or do you see like this is an opportunity? For me personally, I would like the price to go down. I think, and I truly believe that Bitcoin will go in the opposite direction as time goes on, and we'll see a $200,000, $300,000 Bitcoin. So if I can get it a little bit cheaper, I'm happy. When I see things go down, I get a little happier, because when I see things go up, I'm like, shoot, I missed it. So I guess it really depends on how you see these things, opportunity or collapse. But that's what we're at.
Seems like a reasonable answer. What about you, Aaron? Where do you, how much weight are you placing on the whole negative GDP thing? And I think people should remember that even when you do get 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP, and even when they do announce recessions, normally the market's already bottoms by the time that those things are even announced anyways. But just as not really talking as much about sort of the stock market, but just kind of the economy, right? Like, what are your thoughts on the negative GDP? Is it a fluke? Is it going to get revised away? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Honestly, Rob summed it up really well. And I'm also not as well versed in all the stuff you guys are talking about. As smart as I look, I know you guys aren't wearing glasses. Only smart people do, but I actually don't follow it as much. So I actually learned a lot from you just now, Rob. So thank you for sharing your insights.
Thank you. And then, the trading thing, that's not my wheelhouse, but I got to tell you, some of the things you were talking about as far as volume makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think being able to say, being able to do that is great. I think far too many people in crypto have opinions on things they have no business having opinions on. But
you think so? Really? Are you sure?
Anything happens in the world, everyone on Twitter is like a geopolitical expert. Now everyone's an expert on tariffs. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm not an expert on really any of that stuff, but I can understand that if you raise prices, that will affect consumers. Because a lot of businesses will not pay the price themselves; they will pass it on to the consumer, which I think is kind of the worry about. And that's the biggest thing about the trueflation stuff. Like I've looked at trueflation and honestly believe it has been a good leading indicator for some of the the other inflationary things we've been following. But at the same time, how are the tariffs going to affect? It just seems like it could lead to more of an artificial level of inflation. Like it's not going up because of supply chain issues. It's going up just because prices are being artificially inflated just for the hell of it, So we'll see what happens there. Guys, if you have any questions, again, ask them in the comments below. We've already got a few. So let's go ahead. Here's an interesting one. So given the struggle in the altcoin space, do you think Bitcoin will hit a new all-time high, but alts would just struggle and fail to reach new all-time highs this cycle? So so if we're to operate somewhat deterministically on this, the question is like, let's just say if Bitcoin does hit an all-time high, what are the chances that alts will follow, or will they continue to be stuck in traffic on struggle street like they are right now? Anyone want to take it?
That's an Aaron question.
Oh, yeah, that's an easy answer. It
Yeah.
always depends on the chart. There are no blanket yes or no answers to any of these. But in my small little time here in crypto, out of its entire history, I have noticed that Bitcoin always leads the charge, which is why I pay so much attention to Bitcoin's price action and Bitcoin dominance. When we see Bitcoin push above $109,000, what typically happens is alts initially, and I say alts is basically everything except for Bitcoin. But let's just, for the purpose of an example, let's say everything below like the top 20 market cap spot. Because once we start getting to like 21 and lower, things get fuzzy, where it's like, is this really a valid project? Can they actually deliver what they said? Is this vaporware? Is this, is it actually going to do something? What typically happens is those coins can't keep up with Bitcoin. It's almost like a rubber band. So when we see Bitcoin start to really rip, that's typically where we see like the Jeeves starting to kick into alts, and they just start getting face melted and they can't keep up. But once Bitcoin stalls, then we see alts just skyrocket and shoot up. We saw that happen more recently in this November rally, 2024, when Trump was elected. Bitcoin did really well, but then we saw a lot of other charts just really pump and go crazy after Bitcoin had its move. We saw that happen in March, also 2024. That rally started and was preceded by the whole BTC spot ETF hype. The rumor that led to the actual news, right? That started in October. That was an amazing move up. And we saw a lot of big movers, primarily with a really small market caps, right? That's when memes really started to go absolutely nuts. That was the first time they really got to shine. And that's where Solana also had that massive rally from, I think it was like $20 or something like that. It went way too low, went way too high really fast because that narrative was pushing it. So when Bitcoin starts to push up towards, I have a personal target of 173K in November, not to be specific about anything. But once we see Bitcoin start to move up there, and it starts to not have like this blow off top, but like starts to slow down a little bit, that's typically where I see all of the profits from Bitcoin getting rolled into all the other alts. And it usually just trickles down all the way to from the top all the way down. So I want to also follow this up saying, any of you that are just married to Fartcoin, you're married to Pepe, you're married even to Tron, you're married to XLM, whatever, just look at the charts and then just put XLM BTC and then look at the chart. Look at Pepe BTC. They will have their moments where they'll do really well. But Bitcoin is king. I'm not a Bitcoin maxi. I'm just a realist. And as Bitcoin goes up, we will see an exchange of assets, I guess, or like changing hands. And we'll see those alts start to rally up higher. But it won't keep going up and to the right forever. There will be a violent pump and then a violent dump. It happens every single time. And people are ashamedly unaware, to be honest. So that's my answer.
Yeah. And just I'll follow up with this. What Aaron said about being married to it, to these different coins. Like I personally have Pepe coin in my retirement account, in my Roth IRA. I have it in my Roth IRA. And for a couple of months, it did fantastic. And the whole thing about a Roth IRA is that you can trade within your Roth IRA account and there's no capital gains tax, which is awesome. But as time goes on, when it starts to really go up, I'll be selling that and putting it right into Bitcoin. So that's pretty much how that goes. But I have to ask, well, this is a follow-up question. Aaron, like when you were talking about from Bitcoin and they flow down into alts and, top 20 is a little bit murky. Do you take a look at any altcoins and say, is it all just charts, the chart action, or do you look at alts as like a fundamental type of assessment? And which alts are you into?
Yeah, I have never ever gotten into the white papers, all of the Ian Bellina stuff where he was looking at ICOs back in 2016, 2017, just because when the markets are pumping and crazy, any bit of news, any partnership, any new announcement on the roadmap just pumps the price. I've always been a charts guy. The charts tell the story every single time. So when I look at markets going euphoric or rallying really hard, like SUI, yes, there's news. There's the base camp. People are really excited about it. There was rumors about Pokemon or something like that in Sui. I haven't looked
Yep.
into it. I don't care. But what I care about is when I see that collectively the market has decided price is going up and I see volume to support that price shooting up higher, that's enough for me to go, oh, okay, this is a valid run. It doesn't matter. They could be partnering with the Kardashians. I don't really care. But whatever the chart is showing, that's showing sentiment. That's showing where people are literally putting their money where their mouths are. You know what I mean? Does that answer the question kind of?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Chart shows it. Gotcha.
Mm.
What was that one question, Ben, about Dan Zier's Bitcoin dominance?
I put that up because I thought it was funny. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a few more here. I don't really know if I should put this one out because it's a little.
Yes, you should. Of course you should.
No, you're
Let's do
laughing. It must be a good one.
It must be good.
From a European perspective, it seems that the U.S. has lost all their competition. Macroeconomics. Do you think this will change in the near future? I don't know. I mean, it's funny because, like, you know, there's the sort of all the political stuff, but then there's also the interpretation of what's going on over here in other parts of the world. So I guess maybe to rephrase the question in a way that's not as divisive, you know, are we gonna get, you know, like what's gonna happen with these tariffs, right? Like, are we just gonna pretend like they never happened and we're gonna get all these amazing deals and we just kind of go on as if nothing happened and we're like, oh, you guys remember that time the market dropped 20% in like a few weeks and everyone freaked out and then the economy was fine. You know, what do you guys think? I mean, it's gotta. I guess, you know, Aaron said he's over in Japan, but I do wonder how it you know, what the rest of the world is thinking. You know, like I've tried to put myself in those shoes as well. Like, what would we do right now if there was a country that was, you know, a really big economic superpower just raising prices like 100% or 50% on like basically all the countries in the world? What are your guys' thoughts? Like, do you think anything's going to change in the near future?
I will say that just the way that I would guess like other countries look at us would probably be like, that's America doing American things, being the bully. That's kind of like how I would think they would look at us, like that. And then there's two different sides to every coin, right? Some will say, well, they're just being a bully and jerks. And some people will say, well, actually, they're fighting back because of the tariffs that were put on them before, all the way back from 1945 and on. And it just depends on which way it is. But to answer the question, has the U.S. lost all their mentality for macroeconomics? Look, we have what does our debt clock say? $38 trillion. If that won't give you a clue as to where we are, that's not going to, I don't know what to tell you. If it wasn't for the fact that we are the world's reserve currency, we would already collapsed already. And it's a good thing we have that. So anytime soon, no, that's just pretty much how it's going to go.
Someone says that there's low volume today. One of the reasons is it's because of the major bank holiday across much of Europe. So European stock exchanges are closed, so we might see less volume today. Ian, where do you think we are in the 4-year cycle, and is the 4-year cycle still intact? Either of you guys want to take that one?
I still believe in the 4-year cycle. I think that we are still in our top year. Like I said before, I think that Bitcoin is heading up towards 173K just based off of how it performed off of previous cycles, making slightly less parabolic highs, I guess you could say. So like diminishing returns. So anyone that says something like $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, they're just out of their minds crazy. But I will say with that, as far as price predictions go, the moment you start seeing people talking about XRP going to $100, sell some. Just sell it, sell anything. Anyone talks about Ethereum going up to $20,000, have a good laugh, and then sell something. It's just whenever the market gets overly euphoric, foaming at the mouth, even with Bitcoin, it's really actually a practical idea to look at those targets and just like slash it in half. Then that's like a decent target, especially like when some of these seemingly important people are making these big astronomical price predictions. I don't know why they go so high, to be honest. It's insane. But anyway, but I still think that we're intact, which means if this is a 4-year cycle and it's intact, this is a top year, then that means the bear market starts in 2026, which could be frightening because of all of the stuff that we just read about, that screenshot that Rob just shared about a possible recession coming this summer. I mean, it could happen a lot sooner, but I do think that we are $100,000 is a nice round number as it is. So yeah, I think it's still intact. What about you guys?
This is Ben. Didn't you just do a video on this one?
I don't know.
Yeah, you do a lot of them. Someone in my chats yesterday was saying Ben thinks it's more like 2019 instead of 2021. Where do you think we're at?
So I think if you look at social interest, it's a lot more like 2019. I mean, we got, we're tracking all these people watching YouTube channels and followers, Twitter. It looks nothing like 2021. I mean, no way. 2021 was insane, and Bitcoin dominance was cratering. To me, the reason I keep going back to that 2019 comparison is because 2019 was when the Fed ended quantitative tightening in the last cycle, and I remember back then when they ended QT, that was when Bitcoin dominance topped, and that was when social interests started to go back up. And we haven't seen social interests go back up yet. But I think one of the reasons is because monetary policy never actually changed, which is why it makes I'm really interested to see what the Fed's going to do at the next meeting. As far as the 4-year cycle goes, I do believe in it, but I don't think it's measured from the highs. I think you look at the lows, and it's harder. I think figuring out where the lows are is a lot easier, I guess, than the highs. The lows seem to be a lot more predictable. Sort of the end of the midterm years. The highs have also been somewhat predictable up until this point. They've all been like right translated cycles where the peak occurs 1 year before the bear market low. Hopefully that's what we get again. Hopefully Aaron's right and we see Bitcoin go up to those prices. But you could argue that even if that doesn't happen, the 4-year cycle could still be intact as long as the next low is in the end of 2026 or early 2027 or something like that. It just kind of the where the peak is can change. And again, normally the markets go up. I mean, markets normally just go up unless they have a reason not to do so. And I think the main reasons the last few months, it's kind of like chess, right? Like if the market has one weakness, it can often ignore it. If it's just the Department of Government Efficiency is cutting jobs, you could almost argue the market could ignore it because just one weakness. But you have this weakness on this side of the board where they're cutting jobs, and then on the other side of the board we have tariffs, and then there's also all these other claims that are coming out, like of all these headlines, and we don't really know what's going to happen. Like Greenland, right? Is that a real thing? I don't know, but I remember markets hate uncertainty. Like markets absolutely hate uncertainty, and I think we've had a lot of that over the last few months. So I think the 4-year cycle is intact, but I would argue it's more so measured from low to low than like low to high or high to high. And I will say I did not used to believe that. Like had you asked me like 5 or 6 years ago, I probably wouldn't have said that. But I do think that is the way that I would view the markets now. I do think alts will continue to bleed against Bitcoin. And I think they'll probably, look, if the Fed ends QT in May, then obviously I have the right to change my mind, because that probably would be one thing that would change my mind. But until that actually happens, I think they're probably going to go down, find a local low in June, kind of like what they did last year. And then they'll probably bounce and then probably find another low in November. And in fact, if you look at the 2016, 2017 cycle, all Bitcoin pairs hit that low in November. If a lot of people thought that if you get an alt season, it has to happen at the beginning of 2025. But remember, the alt season that happened in the 2016, 2017 cycle didn't really start until November of 2025. November of 2017. It just only lasted 2 months. So we'll see. I do think Bitcoin dominance will continue to go higher. I think 66% is a realistic short-term target. It could go higher than that. It could, but I do think 66% might provide it some resistance for a little while. But anyways, we've been going for a while now. We've only got about 3 minutes left. So why don't we go ahead and wrap it up there? Seems like a good question to sort of in the show on. Guys, if you're not subscribed to Aaron or Rob, make sure you subscribe to them. Links in the description below. Aaron, thanks for filling in for Guy today. I know he was busy, so thanks for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, no, it's fun. Thanks for having me on.
And I guess we'll wrap it up there, guys. See you guys next time. Bye.
All right, guys. Bye.
All right. See ya.